Story 1. Saying hurtful things and then laughing about it as if it is hilarious and saying, "No, just kidding." But not really. Story 2. Yeah, people, you'd go to them and say, "Hey, when you did this or when you said that, it really hurt me. Please don't do that again." Then they turn around and tell you that now they're hurt and want you to apologize to them. After that, they give you the silent treatment. Okay, so you hurt me and now you want me to apologize to you. Got it. Super toxic. I can't stand people who give you the silent treatment and ghost you when they can't communicate their emotions like an adult. Story 3. Never seeing their own accountability in the things that have gone wrong in their lives. Every ex was just crazy or difficult, all of their old bosses were unfair to them, and so on. If they are the victim in every story, run. Separately, people who cannot sit with their feelings and need to talk to someone to process every little thing. For example, people who immediately call someone as soon as they feel anxious because they cannot be alone with that feeling. Story 4. I do not know if it is psychological issues or more like insecurity, but when someone is always telling you how great everyone else says they are, it is a real sign to me that they are wildly insecure. Story 5. My mom thinks picking on me and teasing me is a way I want to receive love since she is okay with being treated that way. I repeatedly ask her to stop, but she doesn't. When I finally get upset and hit her back, she says things like, "How could you say that? Why are you so mean? I was just kidding. You always go for the jugular. I have asked you to stop for over 20 years, so it would be great if you could find it in your heart to respect me." Story 6. We get along great and we never argue. Yes, because you and your family, friend, or partner are highly avoidant. You have not processed a real emotion since 1992. You find the idea of discussing anything even slightly unpleasant terrifying, and you find people who actually feel their feelings to be dangerous. You stick to safe conversations about sports, music, and weather. You cope with the lack of connection and depth through secret addictive behaviors. You need therapy just to learn how to feel emotions again. Story 7. Avoiding their issues, avoiding other people, putting space between themselves and others, and then wondering why they are so lonely. Story 8. One person I used to work with was always telling his coworkers that he was a nice guy. Once you got to actually know him, he was anything but a nice guy. People who are truly nice do not walk around announcing it to others. Story 9. Always having to one-up someone's trauma. For example, if you say you broke your finger, then they say, "Well, I broke my whole arm once." I really dislike people who do that. Story 10. Love bombing is showering a new romantic partner with gifts, praise, and affection. It generally involves moving too fast in the relationship. This behavior is a common characteristic of borderline personality disorder. People with this disorder can be incredibly difficult, and not everyone is prepared for that challenge. Story 11. If someone seems to have a deeply ingrained sense of inadequacy, reacts strongly to criticism of any kind to the point of being defensive, angry, or withdrawn, appears shy, withdrawn, or even socially anxious, and has a need for validation, this may indicate vulnerable narcissism. The signs include blame shifting, passive-aggressive behavior, difficulty with intimacy and trust, and fear of abandonment. Story 12. Never being able to sit in silence and always needing noise usually means they are running from something inside. Story 13. Poor personal hygiene, including teeth, nails, hair, and bathroom hygiene, unless there is a physical disability. Story 14. Getting all righteously offended and emotionally upset over what other responsible adults do. Story 15. If you make politics your entire personality, then it is probably no longer really about the politics and you should seek therapy. Story 16. Anyone whom the friend group has to accommodate due to poor behavior, with statements like, "Oh, that is just the way this person is. You just need to get to know them." Story 17. Using only one headphone or covering one ear with a headset, even when living alone, allows you to listen for your name being called. Story 18. I am an adult who wants to be left to my own devices. I intentionally separated myself from people who were part of my life, and they know why. They don't tell others why, though. I think it's a clear sign when people cannot accept the consequences of their actions toward me and refuse to take no for an answer. I don't know what excuses they tell themselves to justify their invasiveness into my life, my body, and my child, but it is very strange. All stalkers have mental health issues. People who do not take no for an answer also have mental health issues. Telling yourself, I just want to know how she is doing, without her knowing, even though I know she wants nothing to do with me and decided to leave because of how I treated her, is not harmless. It is actually very unhealthy. Story 19. The whole, I do not owe anyone anything speech. They tend to be antisocial and unreliable in relationships. Story 20. Turning every conversation to the same topic does not even matter what that topic is. A person should be able to talk about more than one thing. It shows obsessive behavior. Story 21. My ex-best friend of 20 years was terrible at staying in touch. He often ignored messages for weeks on end. He started bailing on plans and making excuses, which eventually turned into lies. He was always content to avoid any and all conversation. When I confronted him and told him how much he had hurt my feelings and how I was struggling to trust anything he said anymore, he flipped it back on me and said that by telling him off, I had caused him trauma, and that he couldn't face talking to me anymore. I was utterly shocked and heartbroken. He didn't want to take any responsibility for his behavior and immediately deflected it back at me. I desperately wanted to understand what I had done to make him feel that way, but he wouldn't tell me. Eventually, I just said, I'll always be here for you, and I'm sorry if I hurt you. He blocked me shortly afterward, and we haven't spoken for 8 months. It has taken me these past few months to realize what actually happened. Story 22. Shutting down at the first sign of conflict, especially if their actions caused it, refusing to talk it out, then getting upset and blaming the other person once it all explodes. Story 23. Cry a lot. For everything. We romanticize it is okay to cry. Yes, but not for everything and not as a form of manipulation. Story 24. People who frequently post glowing tributes to their partner or their strength as a couple on social media often include self-congratulatory captions that indicate they have it all figured out. For example, the way I knew Ben was my person is when he healed past wounds that I did not realize I had from my broken relationship with my father. Oddly specific? Surprisingly not. What kind of deception are you about to try to sell me? Story 25. People are often only described as very nice. Many times, these individuals are taken advantage of, walked over, and tend to please others excessively. Story 26. Drinking alone. Social drinking is one thing, but everyone I have met who drinks on their own is self-medicating something. Also, regularly forgetting important things, whether business meetings, hygiene, or friends' birthdays. Maybe you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and genuinely forgot. Maybe you are anxious about it and lied so you did not have to go. Maybe you have bipolar disorder and are having a depressed episode and literally could not get out of bed. Maybe you were just not raised in a place where you had to take responsibility for your adult actions and are a man-child as a result. Everyone can make a mistake now and then, but missing a bunch of regular adult obligations is usually a sign of something more. Story 27. If you cannot reflect on multiple times you were wrong about something you firmly believed in and changed your position, you are probably the problem. Changing your mind when presented with facts and hard evidence is a sign of maturity and intelligence. You can defeat 100 scholars with one fact, but you will lose to one fool with 100 facts. Yet many people are proud of not changing their views on different issues. They convince themselves they are the righteous and virtuous ones, and that anyone opposing them is bad and evil. Think about all the beliefs you hold right now on various issues such as Israel and Palestine, religion in general, transgender issues, illegal immigration in the United States and other countries. If you are telling yourself right now that you would never change your stance on these issues no matter what, even if presented with overwhelming evidence that you are wrong, you are the fool. No matter what side you are on, if you are not learning anything new and taking it in, you are not growing as a person. You are regressing. It does not make you a bad person to question things. It does not make you a bad person to accept reality even when it does not feel good. Just because you want reality to be a certain way does not mean that is what it is at the end of the day. There is a path to peace for everyone, but there are many obstacles that refuse to be overcome. A sea of fools who will never waver. People who think they can tell you how to live your own private life and believe they can override your rights as a human being. And opposing fools who think they can do the same thing in the opposite direction. Story 28. Gatekeeping or withholding information while demanding that you use the information as if it is not being withheld. Story 29. Having a constant need to put down everyone around them. They go on a 20-minute monologue about what you or someone did to them in response to you telling them something for 2 minutes. Story 30. Trauma causes silent walking and constant apologizing. It results in no conversation being about anyone else for very long. Their mood dictates everyone else's near them. Story 31. Toxic competitiveness occurs when people try to be better in every context. It happens when someone constantly redirects the conversation to themselves. For example, if you say, "I get scared of this," they respond, "You get scared? I never get scared." Story 32. Not being able to say no to their children. My sister-in-law can say no to the children when it comes to discipline, but she cannot say no when it comes to spoiling them with toys and other things. She grew up poor. Her parents had limited skills, so they worked at a low-paying factory and were generally poor with money. She also has a troublesome brother who causes many issues for the family to this day. Simply put, she often went without. As a result, she does not want to say no when it comes to providing things. Story 33. Evil. Teasing over real issues or interfering with other people's vacations or family life, but calling it just joking. I saw this at my work, and it caused conflict between two people. Trauma dumping. Sharing too much personal trauma on top of your own issues, such as depression, abuse, post-traumatic stress disorder, emotional black holes, or very recent events. Everyone has their own reserve capacity and safe margin. Not everyone who steps back is being difficult. I have mostly stopped trauma dumping myself. It has been a year. Story 34. My ex-girlfriend has a problem listening. It felt like every time I opened my mouth to say something, she opened her mouth too. She never opened her ears when I talked. It really hurt me a lot. Some people are so ready to do the talking and not do the listening. Story 35. When everyone else is the problem all the time, but the person doing all the complaining is never in the wrong, it is a huge red flag. Also, anyone who thinks they are better than everyone else is a huge red flag. Story 36. When someone makes a joke that hurts another person, and the person who was hurt expresses their discomfort, the person who made the joke does not apologize and uses the excuse, "It's just a joke." To me, that shows a lack of empathy. Story 37. Lying. Habitual lying over the smallest and most insignificant things. This suggests psychological issues to me. Who can you trust if you cannot even be honest with yourself? Who can trust you if you never show them the real you? Habitual liars are often some of the most paranoid, fake, and unstable people I have ever met. All they know is digging holes deeper and deeper. Story 38. Passive-aggressive. At least I am not like them. Attitudes often hide toxic issues. If someone has their new partner message their ex just to say, "Hey, I have moved on," they clearly have not. That is a major red flag indicating the need for therapy and personal growth. Sadly, I have seen it happen once. As far as I know, the man still cannot keep a job and has never moved out of his parents' house. Story 39. Talking negatively about other people without exceptions. They have something negative to say about literally everyone, even those who are closest to them and to whom they should be loyal, such as their husband, children, and siblings. Story 40. Refusing to give the other person space to cool off from an argument and continuing to try to get the last word instead. Then getting upset when that person lashes out. Story 41. Making up stories about their past to make them seem more interesting. When you have heard enough stories to start putting pieces together, no one calls them out on their nonsense because it is not worth the time or the hassle. Story 42. Being the friend known as the trauma dump friend, where they unload all their trauma on you but still hang out with their other friends. You become the therapy friend, and that other friend is the dumper friend. I had to cut off 2 friend groups because of this. Story 43. I know that I'm about to be criticized for this, but here goes. Online narcissism. People posting selfie after selfie and making every event or trip about themselves or their posts. I know both men and women who do this, and one man who is especially prone to this behavior will go to a wedding and post only selfies. No pictures of the married couple or the actual event, just their face. It is really sad when people edit pictures of themselves to fit a certain look and then constantly have to manage reactions about whether they are in the background of group pictures or anything else. Also, people bragging about their follower count is very cringeworthy. I know that in 2025 this behavior is normal, and I have plenty of people I care about who exhibit it, and I would never make them feel bad for doing so. But seriously, are you okay? Story 44. Any typically harmless behavior that is done excessively or in situations where it is inappropriate or counterproductive, and in a manner that suggests the individual is not capable of changing their behavior. Story 45. Spanking. I was spanked as a kid and I turned out fine. No, you did not. You grew up to be a person who thinks it is acceptable to hit children. Story 46. My mother-in-law likes to give herself a pat on the back for anything good my husband does. She will say things like, "Well, I am not surprised because he is my son." Story 47. I like watching people run for their lives in films when they do something stupid I would not do, like standing there watching the alien walker come out of the ground in the film War of the Worlds. No way would I stick around. I would be gone the moment the ground started shaking. Story 48. When they show clear evidence of emotional repression, either by talking about themselves or other people. Story 49. Excessive exercising, such as completing 43 marathons in 51 days, and other forms of socially acceptable self-harm. Story 50. The conversation frequently uses first-person pronouns such as me, my, and I. It centers around how exceptional they believe they are. Story 51. Trying to convert people to your religion. Thinking God will intervene in your health issues. Applying religious rules to everyone and then judging and discriminating against people based on them. Keep that to yourself, Josiah. You sound like an insane jerk. Actually, this is not a harmless behavior in my opinion. I know some kind people who have religious beliefs but keep them to themselves. That seems to be the healthier approach. Story 52. Needing to be the loudest voice in a group, not letting others speak. Needing to hear the sound of one's voice constantly. Bringing up topics unrelated to the conversation just to regain attention. Some people save up topics all week, often unrelated, just to talk during a gathering. Story 53. Always offering to pay. People who choose company at a much lower income level often do so for more than personality and enjoying the company alone. I have never met one who did not have an alternative motive. If they are similar in financial level and one always insists on paying, not coerced, financial control and abuse through a you owe me mentality is likely. If someone tries to pay all the time for someone with more money than them, it usually comes from insecurity. They may feel superior without considering the impact on their budget or be influenced by previous relationships that involved financial control or a you owe me narrative. I have been labeled insecure and crazy for this. In other words, paying is often done for oneself during day-to-day hangouts. Otherwise, it is usually fair or aligned with each other's abilities. Story 54. People-pleasing. People often do not pay much attention to it because they benefit from the person's behavior, but the person themselves has often become a chronic people-pleaser due to negative past life experiences. Story 55. Passive-aggressive communication is used by individuals who simultaneously have the impulse toward aggression, but lack the self-esteem to express their thoughts and feelings appropriately. Be cautious about how often you use passive-aggressive communication and consider the thoughts and feelings behind it. Also, be wary of others who rely on it as their primary method of communication. Story 56. Repeatedly telling small unnecessary lies, such as saying your child is an electrical engineer instead of an electrician, or that you were a varsity athlete in high school when you were on junior varsity or never played. These little lies are told to make things sound better than they are or were, even though the reality of the situation is completely acceptable. Story 57. People make jokes at other people's expense and then tell them that they are the ones with the issue if they complain. Story 58. Extreme religiousness involves trying to spin everything into a toxic positivity God has a plan mindset, obsessing over whether the tiniest things are biblical, and refusing to form any relationships with non-believers. As someone who did this for years, I can confirm it was a coping mechanism for undiagnosed obsessive-compulsive disorder. I often wonder how many church members go their whole lives not realizing they might have it too. Story 59. Incessant sarcasm. My former sister-in-law was incapable of being normal. She constantly put everyone down and took being sarcastic to gold medal levels. A truly toxic person. Story 60. People policing their partners and acting like they have to keep them from cheating is problematic. If the only thing preventing your partner from cheating is you going through their phone or vetting every person they talk to, then both of you have issues. Story 61. Maybe not full-on psychological issues, but those people who want you to send them money back over every little thing. For actual psychological issues, it is often the people who are the happiest that have the most severe problems. The friend who is seemingly never sad, is very calm, or can handle everything has something wrong and is one dropped coffee away from a breakdown that could either harm them or make the national news. If you are always leaning on a friend but they never seem to need anything substantial from you, check on them. The chances of them genuinely being okay are slim. Story 62. Pushing far-right conspiracies, for example. There are scary people in the Target parking lot ready to steal your children, vaccines implant chips into you, the government has weather machines. I think we are seeing more and more mass psychosis as a result of a failing education system and social media addiction. These ideas are causing increased isolation in our communities and destroying our country. When someone is called out on this behavior, they go into defense mode and refuse to have any further discussion by using a thought-terminating cliché. If the United States survives through the current iteration, it will be interesting to see the psychological studies done on the mass psychosis and the severe disorders of the prefrontal cortex. Story 63. Helicopter parenting means always assuming the worst will happen to your child. This behavior is often a sign of undiagnosed anxiety disorders or obsessive-compulsive disorder. People will face difficult situations throughout their lives, regardless of how much control you exert over them. Guiding children through these situations is essential. Story 64. When people ignore small requests to accommodate others' input, advice, or needs, and then become angry as their lack of consideration leads to bigger inconveniences later. This relates to the situation where people act like they are listening to you but are just waiting for a chance to talk over you with whatever they have to say. Story 65. This is kind of the opposite of what many people talk about, but when they are very complimentary to others at the expense of themselves. I had a friend who couldn't say something nice to me without turning it into something negative about herself. For example, "You look so good. I hate how I'm so ugly unlike you. Wow, that drawing looks amazing and mine looks terrible. Why can't I ever do anything right? I was talking about how busy I was. Wow, I wish I had something I was good at and passionate about like you. I struggle with everything, and there's nothing I enjoy doing." She was very insecure and not just fishing for compliments, but it also made being around her quite difficult. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.